Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Winick Anthony at Erin Winick on social media, and welcome back to Eureka Hour. I met her a number of years ago through Instagram, and we've stayed in touch, got to meet in person when she was a NASA intern. She's a cool maker, one episode reality star that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. So without further ado, I'd love to bring on Miss Ruby Zoom. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Ruby.
Thank you
for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today, Erin.
I gave a little bit of a teaser intro, but would you mind kind of talking a little bit about yourself and your background?
I've done a few things. First and foremost, I consider myself a member of the maker community, which is people who like to build projects, and we sometimes emphasize creativity over functionality. And then the opposite of that, I'm a mechanical engineer, where I often have to prioritize functionality over creativity. Outside of that, I run a YouTube channel that I call Big Drill Energy, hosted by Ruby Zoom. So you can find me on YouTube if you search Ruby Zoom, or on Instagram if you look up Big Drill Energy. I love mechanical engineering. I graduated college last year with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I started college. My backup major was actually winemaking, but I skipped a grade in elementary school, and I would not have been old enough to take winemaking classes. So they said, sorry, you're stuck in engineering.
Oh, dang.
So,
you said you're involved in the maker community and a very big on the maker community. How would you describe the maker community, and how could someone become a part of it?
I would describe the maker community as a group of really awesome people, totally not biased, who like to build things. Erin, you're also a maker, so I'd love to hear your take on this. But
Sure.
It can be everything from woodworking to restoring a car to sewing to crafting with popsicle sticks, all the way to heavy industrial welding, and all the way back to glitter. So it's a little bit of everything. And because of that, anyone can get involved in nearly any capacity that they want to. And that's one of my favorite things about the community.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you can do it more on your own and, share your creations online, do it just for yourself and make things for your family and friends, or you can find a local makerspace and get involved, which are places that have tons of awesome tools and things.
Favorite thing I've ever made is called the Boot Scoot 3000. There was a Boot Scoot 3004 that was motorized instead of this analog gravity-powered version, but the motor was a favor from a friend, and I had to give the motor back. So we've been downgraded to the gravity-only version. But what this is, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I didn't get to give you the motorized version when we were hanging out together.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a fiberglass mold of a particular asset of mine, and on the back I have some wheels from a pair of old roller blades, and I made wood reinforcements to be able to attach them to the fiberglass mold, and then I gave it a fitting paint job.
I did get the chance to meet Ruby in person when she was interning at NASA, and it was around the time of the Boot Scoot going viral online and getting some news coverage. I was like, okay, we got to meet up so I can try this. So I did get to take the original Boot Scoot for a spin, which was very fun.
An honor that few have bestowed, and I think you're a very good person to share it with.
Thank you very much. Now, what are your Boot Scoot riding tips for the experts who might not have gotten to ride that yet?
So probably one of the questions I get asked most is, how do you brake? And that is a fair question. My answer is the sole of your shoes. People then say, why? I don't think that's a very good idea. And I said, that's the great thing about the maker community. It doesn't really have to be a great idea.
Would you mind talking a little bit about the show you were on and maybe the maker aspect of it?
Sure. So I was on a TV show called Domino Masters. There is me with a lot of makeup on, Funny story, no one recognized me when I came out of the makeup trailer because I usually look like this, and I came out looking like that, and they were all, "Who is she?" And my two other teammates from the show, Inga in the middle, she's also been on some Twitch streams, I understand, with CBS.
She's been an awesome guest here too.
Great, yeah, she's awesome in person, so I'm happy to hear that. And then Kelly, our teammate, I'm not sure if the screen's mirrored or not. Kelly's in the yellow shirt, or from my perspective, on the left. Kelly occasionally does some waitressing jobs, and she had incredibly steady hands. And Inga and I were both so nervous on this show, knocking over dominoes left and right. And Kelly truly was the backbone of our team when it came to setting up dominoes.
Nice. That's awesome. So what was this show exactly? I know it's kind of a spin-off of Lego Masters, right?
Yes. And Lego Masters, to give context for Domino Masters, is a competition show where people form teams of 2 or 3 and under a time constraint are tasked with building something out of Legos, or in the case of the show I was on, something out of dominoes, to meet a theme or a criteria, and then their creation gets judged, and that decides whether or not the team gets to compete in another episode or not. So it's elimination style. We focused on what you built.
Cool. And what's some of what you made when you were on the show?
I got interviewed to be kind of a Rube Goldberg specialist on the team. They knew I had some engineering background. My YouTube channel was really new at this time, but I had 1 or 2 videos of me making stuff, and they called me in to help with some of the mechanical assembly. I built a tube structure that was a marble run for a portion of our build. I built a gem platform. I'm not sure if you can really see in the background, but our build was kind of jungle Aztec themed, inspired by Inga's story. She has a great story. I recommend watching the episode to learn more about our build. I built a gem platform that was at the end of the big long domino run that totally worked perfectly on the first try. The gem spilled everywhere all over the stage. So
oh no.
A marble run and some levers and a lot of sweat and tears.
But you had a good time doing it. I know, even though that we've kind of spoiled that you got eliminated after the first one.
Yes, it was a great experience. I, true to my maker roots, was more interested in how the TV show was made, which is probably not a good thing since I was cast to be on the TV show, but I spent a lot of my time looking around at like, oh my gosh, how does that camera work? Or how do they build the anti-vibration stages and all this other stuff? So it was really cool to see how a TV show was made. And I had a great time meeting the other people on the show.
Would you be able to tell us about some of the tools that are lingering around and over your head and what you might use them for?
Sure. This is my tool wall. I am based out of an apartment, so I'm limited on space, and a good way to optimize space is going up. So the blue stuff that all my tools is hanging on is probably one of my favorite tools. It's called pegboard, and when you have pegboard, you purchase little hooks, and depending on the size of your pegboard, these hooks go into the holes and then give you a place to hang your tools. So one of my favorite tools is actually the stuff that all my tools is hanging on. But
that's great.
Past that, some of the things I use on a daily basis, quick release clamps. These are really good for squeezing down onto a board I'm trying to cut or something that keeps slipping off my table. They make it really easy to get a grip on things.
Cool.
I really I could talk about this forever. You opened a can of worms, by the way.
No, keep going. This is all very cool. I love seeing it.
I have my, this is called a wire stripping tool. So when you're making electronics projects, I can open up an electronics project if you promise not to judge how it looks.
Totally.
You've never seen an electronics project before. They usually look a little neater than this. However, this colored stuff is wires, and the wires talk to the motor, that little blue block in there, and they also talk to a microcontroller, which is like the brains of your electronic device.
That's great.
And in order to get all of those things to talk to each other, you have to use wire. And this tool helps you cut wire to length, and then it helps you take off that colorful part of the wire called stripping the wire, so you can make an electronic connection between more than one wire, which is called soldering.
Cool. That's awesome. And while you're standing up, I just to say I love your shirt too. That's wonderful. So
thank you. I like wearing this one to work because we work in aerospace and everyone is like, ha ha ha, and I'm like, ha ha ha, and it's a good time.
That's awesome. I mean, same for me. I have my moon spacesuit jacket on today too. So both with the different aerospace fashions, and my sleeves zip off too. So very maker style. So
that's awesome. I love that. You should make new attachments. Like you could make a pink sleeve or a pin sleeve.
I love that idea. Maybe some like galaxy fabric or something too, you know?
Another thing I like, which it's kind of nestled in here, hard for me to grab, is my claw hammer. And if you have seen my YouTube channel, don't watch the hammer video. That was my first video and I didn't know what I was doing. My dad loves that video, but it's amazing, so that's okay. Other than my claw hammer, which is a good multi-purpose tool because you can hit things on the front and use the claw on the back to pull nails out or other mishaps.
Okay.
I like this tool, which is called a pull saw. It's meant for wood, mostly, and it's pretty flexible. It's also very lightweight, which makes it nice if you're cutting a bunch of stuff. And what I would cut with this is if I were to take a little piece of wood, because you can bend the saw, you can kind of cut at different angles if you're super slick with it. I'm not super slick with it. I'm learning, but it's a good small saw to have around if you're doing little adjustments to 2x4s or scrap pieces of wood. And It's called a pull saw because when you cut with it, you're not supposed to push really hard. It actually only cuts properly in one direction. So it takes some strain out of your hand when cutting because you don't have to maintain force the whole time. You push lightly and then pull on the way back. That's why it's called a pull saw.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I really like this tool. Pretty much everything on the wall has a significant purpose to my daily making. Otherwise, it would not earn a spot on the wall. I have 2 toolboxes that you can't see that have my tools that didn't make it to the wall, but are still useful to have.
Now, are there any like new tools that may have come out recently that you are interested in trying to use in your making at all?
All the time. It's not good for my bank account. I try to limit myself, but technology is amazing and there's always new technology. I would say the next thing I'm considering purchasing is an upgrade kit for my 3D printer. I have a Joseph Prusa printer, the MK3S Plus, and there is a conversion kit to bring that up to speed with the Mark IV printer. And the reason I want that upgrade kit is because it includes first layer leveling. And if you don't really know what 3D printing is, and you definitely don't know what I just said, it's a fancy word for the prints are going to come out better, more consistently, because you don't have to adjust that first layer as much. The kit will do it for you on your printer. And
that's cool.
If you do get into 3D printing, you'll soon learn that that is annoying, and having something do it for you automatically is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, a 3D printer lays down layers of plastic that are like really thin, and that first layer is always so crucial because like you want to make sure it like sticks to the printer, and like you don't want to leave your print alone until you've seen it really successfully do that first, layer or two to make sure it's good to go. Because I think we've all made that mistake. If you've ever done 3D printing and you come back and it's just a pile of spaghetti, it's like just tons of sprayed out plastic that didn't do what you wanted it to do. So anything that can make it more consistent is always really, really helpful. Now, I'm interested, would you say that you were a maker first or an engineer first?
That's a really tough question. I have memories of making things when I was younger, but I thought that was my dad's thing, and I was just kind of helping him out, so I didn't feel very connected to what we were doing.
Okay.
I would say when I got to college and I started my mechanical engineering degree, I quickly realized I had way more fun in the machine shop, where I got a job for part of college and got to learn more hands-on skills with tools. I learned that I loved the machine shop a lot more than I loved the library. And by starting my mechanical engineering degree, I think it really opened the door for me to get into the hands-on stuff way more, because I now had a connection that wasn't just, oh, this is my dad's thing. It was, oh, this is what I'm studying, and here's a fun thing to do, making, to aid my studies of engineering. So I think they kind of went hand in hand. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I know. I know they kind of can go side by side, but I didn't know, like, was high school Ruby making robots, or in an engineer club, or is it just kind of like because for me, I found engineering like in college too. It's like I took a design and manufacturing lab class. I always liked making stuff, but being able to see the big machines and learn all that kind of helps solidify that is like the cool thing. But at the same time, I was always sewing and stuff growing up. So I'm curious. So if someone else is like, maybe a maker in like, high school, middle school, what advice would you have for them to see if they want to make the jump to full-on engineer?
If you are planning on going to college, try it. Start out engineering by trying it at college. Understand that the first year of any engineering degree is going to be a lot of math and science and physics, and not really the most fun. So try to give it 2 years if you can to get into some of the design for manufacturing and the fun lab classes that Erin and I have been talking about. But I would say try it. And if you don't want to fully take the leap to trying it in college, totally understand. I would say talk to some local people in your area. Talk to car technicians. They have really good engineering mindsets. See if you can sit them down and ask them what it is that they like about their job. A lot of times it's problem solving and getting to work on hands-on problems, and that's also what engineering is, just a little bit more math sometimes.
Sure, the math is needed sometimes, so.
But the math, the more you do it, it gets easier, and by the end of the degree, that's when like the robots kick in and the cool internships and working for NASA and stuff. So you kind of do like a 2-year trade, 2 years of less fun stuff for 2 years of really fun stuff, and then you get a job, and that's even more fun stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of trying it out at NASA, the way that we both met in person was when you came down to Houston and spent a summer at NASA. Could you talk a little bit about what you did there? Because I know you got to have some very cool experiences that I think few people are ever going to get to have while you were there.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to talk about NASA. I will start by saying that all of my interactions with NASA started with you. I realized I got the internship offer, and I started Googling women NASA Instagram, and you were the first person who popped up. So
That's crazy.
I messaged you, and you responded, which made a huge difference in my life. So thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I'm here because of you. Thank you. And I had a really good time at NASA. You had some great advice. You had really good insight. You work in a very cool department doing science communication at NASA. And you helped set the stage for my expectations coming in, so that when I did come in, I really jumped the gun and found a way to do as many things as I could while I was there. Mm-hmm. And answering your question, some of those things were doing donuts in a rover. I met the engineers who work on the rover, and one night they were like, "It's really late, we're gonna drive it, do you want to come?" And I said yes. So I got to burn donuts in an interplanetary rover mock-up, and I got a message from the facilities director the next day through my work. I immediately thought I was in trouble because we did a number on the grass. And I was fully prepared, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble, but it's okay. It was worth it. I got to do donuts in a rover. And instead, he wanted to know more about the boot scoot because he saw the news article about the boot scoot, and I was like, whoa.
You have a good manager and supervisor when that's the response. Okay, I don't care about that. Show me your cool maker creation that's making the news. That's what I want to know about.
Yes, so that definitely set the tone for my time at NASA, and I networked with a bunch of people, and I think the only other, no, I shouldn't say only, but the other unique experience I had there that's a little bit more difficult to get at NASA unless you work in this specific group at this specific NASA location is I got to scuba dive with astronauts. So before I got to NASA, no, it gets crazier. I'm not sure who's watching and what your age demographics are, but if you've never heard Freddie Mercury's song Under Pressure, I want you to play that right now so you can get some context. But I took my scuba diving test. I passed. There's a sound system in that pool so that the astronauts can talk to the mission control people back and forth during training. But there's also a sound system so they can play music. And I passed my dive test. I'm at the bottom of this pool. It's 40 feet deep. It's 200 feet long. It's 100 feet wide. It's crystal clear. There's a mock-up of the space station in it. And the dive instructor signals like, "Come with me, kid." And I'm like, okay. So I'm paddling along. And he puts his arm out. And I stop, dead in my swimming tracks. And all of a sudden, the starting notes of Under Pressure start playing, like do 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 do, etc. I won't go further to avoid copyright. And he points up, which usually means, okay, it's time to ascend. So I start swimming up, and he grabs me and he pulls me back down. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm new to scuba diving. What do you want me to do? But I have a respirator in my mouth, so it's just like bubbles. And he points up again. Under Pressure is still playing, and one of the astronauts was above my head working on their training operations. So you look up in crystal clear water, and there is a real live astronaut in an astronaut suit working on a mock-up of the ISS, and I got to observe it, and it gives me chills to this day. I love telling this story, and I really don't like being underwater, but scuba diving was worth it just for this moment. I have not scuba dived since.
Oh, really? I mean, how could you get better than that? Like, you kind of hit the peak of all scuba diving, and then you're like, I'm done. Why would I ever go again? So that's awesome.
So, I don't care about fish. I just want to see astronauts.
Yeah, there you go. I'm curious, what were you actually working on in the pool, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. So it was my college research program. My project, I should say, not program. That's also a long story, so this is good practice trying to tell this one more concise. But basically, I got a head injury right before I started college, and I had to delay college because I couldn't do math, I couldn't drive a car, it was really bad. I get better, I go to college, I meet a professor who happened to be a retired astronaut. We get to talking, I told him I had a brain injury, and throughout conversation we learned that brain injuries and going to space have a lot in common in terms of how they affect your physiology, particularly your inner ears. It's called the vestibular system. And when you're in space, and since Erin, you are a specialist on the ISS, please correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. You go to space and your inner ear doesn't know what's going on, and you can get motion sick because there's no gravity to hold down the fluid in your ear to give you a point of reference. So when you get concussed, you can also have vestibular problems. So the joke was, I went to space the bad way. Like, he got to go to space the good way, actually going to space. I just got all the symptoms and never went to space.
No fun.
The project I worked... Yeah, right? No fun. Literally the worst. But it worked out okay because we started this research project to see if we can help people train against motion sickness. So it tracks your head motion, and if you're moving your head too quickly, it flashes a light, and that is your sign that you need to slow down. So the goal is when people go into space and they're all excited and looking around, this helps them remember to keep their head motions under control to not aggravate the symptoms.
Are there any other creations that you wanted to share before we left? I wasn't sure if we had gotten to all the ones you wanted to talk about. It's not a physical creation, but it's a creation I hope to bestow the watchers of past, present, future with. And it lives in here to be very dramatic, but I feel passionately about this. And this creation, it always hurts when I pull it out, is the creation of what you learn about yourself that inspires you to make. Because once you know about yourself what it is that you like to make, you will spend the rest of your life making. And that's one of the most wonderful things I think you can do. It's a community full of joy, full of cool people, full of learning, full of support, full of Eureka Hours, full of scuba diving with astronauts and making butt scooters. And after I learned what it was that I like to make, I have made things ever since, and it's been my favorite part of my life. So, that's beautiful.
Back in.
I love it. That's so great. And, I feel like, I love that you love it so much. And I think that for me, I found out that the reason I became an engineer is that I liked making, but I also learned that there's so many other things you can make, whether it's writing a novel or writing a story, like even the act of creating a video, all of that is making too. It doesn't have to be, 3D printing that physical thing, but just that mindset of like creating something for yourself, for others, whatever that is, it is really rewarding. And it's such a cool community and communities within a community to be able to be a part of. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Ruby, for being here. I've loved talking with you. So much cool stuff. And hopefully we get to touch base with you again after you do a zero gravity flight in May.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me, Erin. And
sure
if
thing.
the followers on the chat don't follow Erin, they need to follow her because she's awesome.
Thank you, Ruby. All right, bye. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
If you're watching this, you must have really liked the video. Make sure you follow and subscribe, and check out these other videos that are even better. No, really. I've seen this one over 100 times.